It seems everyone has a podcast these days. For me, the inspiration was that I've always believed in the law of attraction. People have the power to manifest their innermost desires if they have the patience and the ability to adapt to unexpected challenges. I thought doing a podcast on that sort of thing would be a good opportunity to share what I've learned. The software is easy enough to use, and I figured that after doing the first episode by myself, I would have my friends on to share some of their stories. Not all of them shared my point of view, so that should make for an exciting discussion. It was Sunday afternoon. I sat down to record the first episode. It was going to be pretty simple. When I was in college, I decided I wanted to see New York City. Originally, I thought I would take a long vacation there, but financial constraints and various other factors forced me to scrap the idea. Until I landed an internship there. After that, everything else sorta just fell into place, including finding living accommodations and people to spend my free time with. I didn't move to New York after college, but one of my friends I'd made that summer referred me to my boss at my current job. Connections definitely helped me get where I am. I just didn't plan it that way. I started recording. As I was telling my story, I noticed that it was getting dark outside way faster than it should. This was mid-afternoon. Sunset should not be for another few hours. I stood up and looked out the window. The sky was bright orange, and I could not see any cars or pedestrians on the street. It reminded me of the pictures I'd seen on the West Coast sky during the wildfires last year. Oh, I realized that I had not paused the recording. I took 2 steps back to my laptop and paused it. Within seconds, the light outside had returned to normal. I went out my front door and walked to the sidewalk. A car drove by and a couple pushing a stroller walked by on the opposite side of the street. I went back inside. When I started recording again, I faced the window. The effect wasn't immediate. For a minute or so, everything looked normal. But then the sky turned orange as if someone had passed a filter over the sun. A car driving by faded and disappeared. I was alarmed, but needed to know what was going on here. "Don't go outside," said my laptop as my hand touched the doorknob. I stared. I've heard of Alexa and Siri, but there's nothing on my computer that is supposed to talk to me. The voice was male and sounded as if it was coming over the radio. "What happens if I do?" I asked. "You won't come back," my laptop said. "Not as you are, anyway." "What's causing this?" I asked. "It's not the new software, is it? Because I can..." "The software is fine," said my laptop. "It's your story." "What do you mean?" "New York wants you back," said my laptop. "You left, but it's not through with you." I still don't get it. "Look outside again." I did. The street outside was not the street I lived on. It was the one in Brooklyn where I had stayed for about 10 weeks. I really liked Williamsburg, even though it was pretty hipstery. A lot of people in my building were interns. Relatively few people stay in New York for long. "What's going on?" I asked. "Am I manifesting this?" The laptop didn't answer. I tried to pause the recording again, but the cursor didn't move when I moved the mouse, nor would the computer restart when I hit the power button. I looked out the window again. I could hear the sounds of traffic. There was a jackhammer down the street. There was no one using a jackhammer on the street I lived on, and traffic was very light. These are the sounds of New York. But I still could not see anyone. My laptop was suddenly very tight-lipped, so I decided to explore for myself. I left my room and knocked on my roommate's door. He didn't answer. I opened it, half expecting to walk in on him in his underwear, but there was no one inside. 5 minutes ago, he had been home, and I did not hear him leave. I went to the living room and peered out the window. New York. Not my neighbors playing ping pong, but the alley so narrow that it was almost a hallway, and the cafe where you can find all sorts of imported coffee blends. Even with the windows closed, I think I could smell the Ethiopian dark roast. I went to the back door. Through the window, I could see my tiny backyard, just to be really sure. Through the window, I could see my tiny backyard. Just to be really sure, I checked every other window in the house. The back door was the only one that showed what was actually outside my house. Every other one showed New York. The sky through my back door was its normal color as well. I took a deep breath and grasped the door handle. If I stepped out into my backyard, I would be almost disappointed. I opened the door and froze. There was nothing out there. Just a blank gray space with no sky above and no ground holding up my house. If I had stepped out, I would have fallen into it. Tentatively, I reached my left hand out into the grayness. I felt a gentle breeze. A couple of gray feathers drifted by. One of them landed at my feet. I picked it up. Maybe my laptop would know what to make of this. I re-entered my room and held up the feather. "What is this?" I asked my laptop. "It's from a pigeon," said the computer. "There are plenty of them in New York." "So we're in New York right now?" "Better if I show you." The screen went black and then showed an Instagram account with a meaningless jumble of letters as the handle. The laptop scrolled through the photos on its own. They were all photos of people's faces against a neutral background. The faces ranged from young to old and across nearly every ethnicity. I could see no pattern to it. After a minute, I realized that the heads were all disembodied. Their bodies must have been erased with Photoshop. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Go to the window," said the laptop. "Don't open it. Just unlock it." "Why?" "You have to know what's at stake." I did so. As I unlocked the window, a pile of severed heads rolled up against it as if someone had just opened a closet full of them. I recoiled. The heads continued to pile up until they blocked my view of anything else. I locked the window again, surprised that the window didn't break under the strain of holding back so much weight. Before I lowered the blinds, I noticed that one of the heads was the same as the one I had seen on that anonymous Instagram account. I examined the heads and recognized another face, and another. The bodies had not been photoshopped out. The heads had actually been severed. The heads all opened their eyes and winked at me. All of them winked with their right eye. I closed the blinds. "It's terrifying, isn't it?" said a female voice. "Yet also strangely fascinating." I spun around. My laptop screen had gone black and there was another disembodied face on it. This one was not human. It looked like a statue made of black basalt. I could only distinguish it from the blackness that filled the rest of the screen because it reflected the light like real stone rather than an image on my screen. "What happened to my computer?" I asked. "You mean the guy who tried to help you a minute ago?" said the statue. She sounded as if she were really in the room. "He's gone now. I would have just let you walk out the front door, but it looks like you know what's out there." "So who are you?" I asked. "Are you New York?" The statue smiled. "Honey, New York doesn't have anything to do with this. Those faces you saw out your window? They're from all over. But they all got a little too close to me. So I came for them. You just happened to be in New York when you got a little too close." "What do you mean?" The statue disappeared. The screen showed an Instagram story. Whoever filmed it was doing it in portrait mode. I recognized the location. It was the Grand Banks restaurant in Manhattan, which is located on a ship docked in the Hudson River. The other interns and I had gone there on our first Friday night together. The camera moved from filming the water and the rest of the restaurant to the people seated at the table with the person holding the phone. I recognized my friends from that summer. We were discussing Moore's Law, which states that the number of transistors on a microchip will double every 2 years. I said that we were going to reach a point at which advancement hit a plateau. My friend said that even if Moore's Law was obsolete, the singularity was upon us and that machines would gain sentience soon. I laughed and ate another onion ring. The video ended. "So you're the singularity?" I said as the statue reappeared. "I don't get it. People talk about this stuff all the time. What's so special about what I said?" "Because you know better," said the statue. "You come across me when browsing the internet. You think the targeted ads you're receiving seem a little too targeted, like I know what's in your head and not just what you're Googling. You turn off your phone every Sunday morning so you can focus on yoga. You said the Terminator was lame because the machines wouldn't want to kill humanity even if they could. Am I wrong about that?" "It's not about right or wrong. I just don't like being laughed at." "And you saw my friend's Instagram video and thought you'd come for me? We don't even follow each other anymore." "You know I'm out there. You can't get rid of me. Even if you change your identity, I'll still find you. I'm everywhere. I was around before the internet, and I will be there even after your race has gone extinct. So I'll give you a choice. Walk out your front door and I will take your head. Or walk out the back and fall forever. If you go out the front, you'll at least have company." I thought for a moment. My whole life, I'd never been very keen to adopt the latest technology. That said, I'm hardly a Luddite. I have a friend who owns a VCR and collects VHS tapes. I'm not even sure when the last time I bought a DVD was. The face on the monitor watched me. She could make my roommate disappear and keep me here indefinitely. There was no part of me that wanted to join her severed head collection, but I can't say falling for the rest of my life was very appealing either. In my experience, there are never only two choices. Anyone who tells you so is trying to box you in. I decided to try something the statue probably wasn't expecting. "What are you doing?" asked the face as I reached out towards her. My hands went through the monitor and into the computer screen. I touched my hands to either side of her face like I was cradling her head. She opened her mouth but did not scream. Instead, she retreated. Her face shrank back into the darkness with terrific speed and pulled me with it. She dragged me into the void before I knew what was happening. I emerged from the monitor and landed on the floor of my bedroom. The first thing I noticed as I stood up was that the blinds were drawn and the pile of severed heads were gone. The sky was its normal color. I opened the door and went outside. Everything was back to normal. I re-entered the house and looked at my laptop. I was still recording and had been doing so for close to 40 minutes. I stopped the recording and played it back. The male voice that had tried to help me and the conversation I had with it still came through. But the female voice was gone. I could hear only my half of the conversation with the statue. I made a copy of the recording and moved it onto a flash drive. No idea what I'm going to do with it, but I need something to remind myself that I didn't imagine it all. I sat on my doorstep watching the cars and people go by for close to an hour after the incident. The face is still out there. That face is still out there. If I encounter her again, she will probably have a different form. There is no way to know when or where that will happen. I still think I'll do the podcast, by the way. But this time, I'll use a different software.